Why single mums and dads don't go on dates. They get matched, but they don't go on dates. And the answer, if you're a parent, whether you're single or not, is you can't get a babysitter. They are hard to get hold of. So what do? They understood the unmet need of the client. They then addressed it with value-added service, 3 hours of free babysitting. And as a net result, usage of the platform then started to go up across folks that needed to get babysitters, and it was solved. So you're solving for the things to drive usage of the thing that you want to provide in the first place. So what's the insurance equivalent of that? What's my equivalent of how do we get people to buy more or lean in more and use our services? What's stopping them today, and how do we go address that?
All right, today we have with us Nigel Walsh, Managing Director of Insurance at Google. Welcome, Nigel.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. I'm really excited to jump in and get your perspective. So let's dive right in to Hot Topics, where we ask you a question about an industry trend. Today we are talking about product versus customer-led. So you've been critical of the industry being product-centric, though we hear a lot of lip service around customer experience. So what does true customer centricity look like, and how do organizations make that shift?
I get this a lot, and I have to say it's something I have been critical of. And I'm critical of it as someone who is in love with the industry, number one. But number two, as a consumer, as someone who sits there and is made to trawl through all the individual lines I have to buy. And my life isn't driven in that way. I'm being forced to segment my life in ways that deal with auto, homeowners, pet, travel, commercial, you name it. But that's not how I wake up in the morning. That's not how I feel. It's like calling a contact center and the first question they ask you is, hey, welcome to ABC, what's your policy number? I'm neither a policy number. I'm Nigel Walsh. So maybe the first question needs to be, hey, what's your name? How can I help? And then divide into or drive into where we actually go to support people. So we are policy or product centric first and foremost. And what I think we need to do, and what we're seeing in every other industry, in fairness, is shift to customer centric. And I think everyone talks about being customer centric. What they really mean is we're going to put the customers at the heart of what we do in our product line. So we'll get better in our silo, but we won't necessarily see the whole picture.
Are there any organizations or product lines that you see that are doing this well? I'm trying to think of an example because I agree it's very separated. Is the answer more bundling to, combine policy types together?
I think bundling is a part of it, but bundling of policy types doesn't necessarily solve the problem. And I say that because then you just get a BOP or whatever else it might be that has all the things that you need for the insurance. But insurance is a means to an end, in essence, to get from point A to point B if we're looking at auto, or to cover your risk on the property, or complete a gig or a piece of work or whatever else. Isn't there more to this? Isn't this where I talk about value-added services and the things that we actually fall in love with? I don't necessarily love my insurance, but I love getting from A to B because I get to go for dinner or get to go to work or go from point A to point B. So how do we make insurance and bundle not just the product, but the things that we want to engage with?
One element that you touched on too that makes a lot of sense is part of being customer centric is understanding their experience outside of insurance and making that comparison broader.
And I think there's going to be thousands of these things. And our question now is, are we doing this in small incremental pieces, bit by bit by bit by bit, and slowly making it better as marginal gains? Or can we do it at scale, at true scale, and go, we're going to fundamentally change how we think about the industry? And that's what I get excited by.
Love it. All right, let's shift to industry chatter, where we share a quote from someone else in the industry to get your reaction. So today's quote comes to us from Abel Travis. The quote is, APIs are the glue that connects platforms and helps to enable seamless ecosystems. Some insurtech innovators have disengaged carriers that haven't deployed the capability. leaving them out of the adopting transformational innovation. Carriers need to consider a solid API strategy as core to their digital transformation. Are APIs sort of a prereq to transformation, and are you seeing this lagging and this disengagement?
Let's start with the first part. So a big shout out to Abel. I'm a big fan of what he's been doing for the last couple of years as well. He could have written this quote directly for me, given where I am now. But actually, we're at a state now where we should be able to interconnect the world in a much better, smarter, and more agile way. None of the new startups that exist today exist without APIs. They build for the future, they build for flexibility, and they build for integration. So many of these folks will be operating at a different speed to some of the carriers they have to engage with. So it's almost are you able to A, publish, and B, consume the things that we're putting out there? And I think with APIs, they allow us to break down our businesses into micro or sub components. So how do I provide distribution as a capability, claims as a capability, service as a capability, and then allow other organizations to consume those in small little pieces, or orchestrate lots together to give you the end outcome that you want in the first place. So for me, that's a really, really great way of going back to how do we use APIs as the foundation to get to true customer centricity.
Now, you shared an analogy that I listened to on a recent podcast, and it was hitching a wagon to a Ferrari, I think was or Lamborghini. Anyway, you get the idea. And I think that's kind of a relevant analogy here too, is if you're using different levels of technology, it makes it impossible to synchronize and upgrade together.
Yeah, I feel like an old guy sometimes, and my kids will tell me I am, but I always remember someone saying to me, you can always only ever go at the slowest part of the network. And if the slowest part of the network is someone that can't transform or puts you into a change stack that you get 3, 4, or 6 months later, then what's the point? If you want the change done, it needs to be done quickly and efficiently. So there's a lot to be said around modern architecture on these things, and of course, cloud architecture as you go forward.
Absolutely.
And now we hear from our BPTV audience with questions from the crowd.
So today's question for Nigel is, what is the least lovable aspect of P&C insurance, and how do we fix it to make it lovable?
Oh, you've hit my hot buttons here. If you start backwards from the question, make it lovable, and you go and ask, and I'm sure you've done the same thing when you sat around with friends and said, hey, what do you do? And you say, I'm in insurance. You see them slowly go back or whatever else. No one wants to love insurance apart from the hundreds of thousands, of course, that work in the industry to make it lovable. So for me, I think the least lovable aspect is the fact that it's non-engaging. And how we change that is we use the APIs, we lean into the customer centricity that you talked about earlier, and we find a way to create engagement with people that's beyond insurance. Now, I know, Amber, you and I won't get passionate about our fridge or our content or whatever else, but we've got to start working out the ways in which we get the opportunity to be helpful, number one, and number two, that we then use the APIs you talked about a minute ago to engage you in very different ways going forward, whether it's alerts, whether it's insights, whether it's things to make your life easier and more enjoyable. In the same way that I described Match.com, how do we unlock people to use and realize the benefits of what you've bought, why you've bought it, even if you never get to use it? No different than sending out videos at Thanksgiving to say, here's how you cook your turkey. It really is just a cute cue to not burn down your property, right?
Right. Yeah, I think there's two avenues I've seen experience relatively high levels of success, and that's aligning with a passion or aligning with an additional value proposition, taking the insurance value proposition even farther.
Without doubt, and genuinely, I am on a mission to make it lovable.
Thank you so much, Nigel. Appreciated your perspective. Great conversation.
Thank you very much. Take care. See you soon.